is Joseph Sheeran. I am a Life Together Fellow at Episcopal City Mission. And before I begin, I just want to highlight an announcement that's in your bulletin that we have a lobby day coming up in just 2 weeks now. That's just the top of the announcements. I encourage you all to talk to me about that after the service, if that's something you're interested in. And I hope you are. And begin. Grant, O Lord, that the words of my mouth and the meditations of all of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O God, our rock and redeemer. Amen. As I said, I am very grateful to John for the opportunity to preach here today. This is such a joyful thing for me. And I saw the gospel which John just read, and it's a passage that has been very problematic for me. I don't know if you can see from where you're sitting, but I wear hearing aids. I have worn hearing aids most of my life, almost my entire life I've been hearing impaired. When I was a child, they actually thought that I was autistic because I just wasn't interacting with the world around me. And they found out when I was 2 that actually the issue was that I was just not hearing. That I was, if not actually, colloquially deaf. And that is something that I grew up with. It was an obvious and clear difference. If you couldn't see the hearing aids, you could see me not reacting to the teachers in class. Or I've even been told that I move like I'm deaf. And I don't react to changing pressures around me or something. I don't know. But this is a passage that's very clearly about someone who is sensorily deprived, who is missing some function that people assign as normal. And Christ comes to him, and in his faith, he heals this man. I used to wish that I could have hearing. I still think it would be nice to not need hearing aids, to be able to go swimming or play sports and be totally aware of what's going on, to have all the information that everyone else has. And I used to think that maybe if I somehow had been born in the 1st century and encountered Christ, that maybe I too could have been healed, that I could have been made whole. And people would tell me, Joe, if you really want this, if you pray hard enough, if you believe enough, anything is possible. God can heal you. We will pray your deafness away. And that was terrifying. Terrifying. If I really believed, if I truly loved and followed Christ, then anything would be possible. But if it turned out that anything wasn't possible for me, if I'm not faithful enough, if my faith is not strong enough, if I do not believe enough, if I'm not good enough, and I stay deaf. Do you see what that does? Do you see how that shifts this into something that just is, into something that I am not faithful enough, and therefore I still have this disability? That I am lacking in faith, that I am flawed and human, a sinner. That's what the disciples say, and that's what the Pharisees say. They both say the same thing. They say, "Teacher, who sinned? We know that there is something wrong with this person, this blind man, who was born blind. We know that God smiles on the righteous, that God sends healing rains and beautiful warm sun on their lives. That he blesses them, and that those who he does not bless, those who are hurting, those who suffer. We know that there is sin that causes that. So whose sin was it, teacher? Was it his parents? Were they flawed human beings whom God decided to reward with a damaged son? Or was this man himself a sinner? That he should be blind, that he should be able to, that he should walk through this world without vision? Who sinned? And when Christ heals him, and the Pharisees want to know what's going on, they say to him, "You are a sinner. Why should we listen to you?" And they don't even miss the logic that the whole reason that he was a sinner is because he's blind, and now he's not blind, so how is he still a sinner? That part goes right over the heads. He is a sinner, and he is threatening what we have figured out here, what we know to be true. What we know is that we follow the rules, and we are blessed. And you are threatening that you, a sinner, you were a sinner. Why should we listen to you? Sometimes I feel like we also know this to be true, that we can see people who are suffering. We can see people who are homeless in the street. We can see people who are addicted, who are lonely, who are angry. And we can say, well, gee, I'd love to help you, but, we roll our eyes and we shrug our shoulders. When we see brokenness, we assume that someone must be responsible, that this is not something that just happened. And that maybe, yes, there are some unfortunate circumstances, but surely if this person were battered, would this be the situation? Would they be on the street asking you for money? Would they be at the counselor in tears because their wife left them, or their partner left them, or their kids don't talk to them anymore, or because any number of hurts? If they really were good people, would they be an alcoholic? Would they be an addict? How easy it is. And I speak from experience here. My family tree, I'm the first generation of my Irish family to not be Catholic. I can tell you that we are riddled with addiction and alcoholism. I can tell you that my parents' divorce is because of alcoholism. How easy it is to see pain and want to push that as far away from us as we can get it. To say that, no, you are broken and I am not. I am loved and you are not. How easy it is to fail to see human beings made in the image of God and just instead see mistakes, problems, faults, offenses, dangers, relapse, guilt, sin. Before I moved to Boston, I lived in South Dakota, on the Indian reservation. It's a place where we put people, we being the United States, unless we forget all of us are complicit in that, we put these people here into this little corner of the country where there are no natural resources, or very few. He said, go and live here, isn't it great? And then when poverty happened, he said, oh, well, that's just a drunk Indian over there. I lived in this place, and it was beautiful. It was real. Because everyone knew pain. I was invited by a friend to visit his brother in a place about an hour north of Pine Ridge, 20 minutes northwest from Oglala Lake. You ever happened to pass through there? I was invited to a sweat lodge. It's a ritual that I can't claim. It's not who I am. I stand before you pasty and white. It's not my culture, it's not my ritual. But I can tell you that it was real. That God is in that space too. When I met Cornell, the first thing he saw was my ears. And he asked me if I wanted to pray, if I wanted to pray for healing in the sweat. And at this point, I was just done with that idea of praying for my healing, to heal my ears. And I said, sure, man, whatever, sounds great. And we sit down there, and he's singing these prayers, these beautiful prayers to our Creator. And he takes a spruce and crumples it up in his hand, and he throws it into the hot rocks in the middle of the tent, in the middle of the lodge. And the vapor comes off. And he hands me a fan made of feathers. He says, take this smoke and blow it, fan it into your ears. And you're going to do that for this entire cycle. Sing. And I was just like, sure, man, this is great, let's do it. It's like, I don't know what this is, I don't know if this is going to work, but like, this is cool, so I'm going to do it. I don't know if in fact, I do know that in terms of the medical science, I am still deaf. I'm still wearing hearing aids. If you took them out, I would have a hard time having a conversation. And at the time, I was just like, hey, this was cool, but like, the healings like didn't happen, didn't expect to happen, that's fine. It's great. But I wonder now, if maybe it did happen. If maybe in that moment, in that place, in that sweat, and in the place around it, and in the place where I continue to find myself today in Boston, working for the gospel, working for justice, if maybe my ears weren't opened, if maybe when I go downstairs to my office, upstairs at the cathedral, to the downstairs space in Sproat, where on Monday there is a free meal and a Eucharist for whoever wants to come, which means homeless persons, people experiencing homelessness. If I can go there and I can be in that space, if I can hear injustice, if I can act for that, then maybe my ears have been opened. Maybe this is the kind of healing, I know it's a healing service. Maybe healing my ears is not something that's going to happen. And maybe it doesn't need to. Maybe that's not what God has in mind. Maybe God has in mind something more subtle, more beautiful, quite frankly, more useful than Joe no longer needs hearing aids. Maybe my ears can be open. Let that be true. Let my ears hear the suffering, that anger and that hurt, and that fear that we all have, that we are alone. And just hold that. Maybe that's how my ears can be opened. Maybe that's how my ears can